Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. As always, I will be your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movies and TV. Well, we return to the show for Marvel Fridays. We're going to do it a little bit out of order, though. We're going to take a pause on the theatrical released order, and we're going to talk about the newest Marvel series on Disney Plus, Wonder Man. All 8 episodes are now streaming on Disney Plus today. So we're going to break down each of those episodes and talk about the newest hero to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before we get into all that, though, a couple of reminders at the top of the episode. You can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also watch it on Spotify now, so whichever one you prefer to watch on. And you can also listen to the audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, whichever podcast listening service you prefer. Also, check out the social media pages on X, Instagram, and Facebook. I post all the artwork that you see on every video, as well as breaking news from Hollywood and other movie and TV related items for your pleasure. Hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. It helps the show grow a lot, and I appreciate everybody that has been along for the ride the last few years, especially this last year as we mark the first year of being on YouTube. Now we go on year 2. A lot of stuff coming out this year. A lot of episodes, a lot of events, new releases, TV shows. It's going to be a blast in 2026. So with that, let's head over to news and reactions for a couple of items to talk about. So first up, A24 has won the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It sounds like it was a pretty competitive bidding process, but they now own the rights to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It sounds like a TV series and a featured film is already in the works. This is coming from the writer that brought you The Long Walk, as well as it looks like Glenn Powell is involved as well. So, I think that's probably best case scenario for this franchise, having A24 at the helm. I absolutely love A24. They've given us a whole range of films over the years, especially horror thriller like movies. So I think them having Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a huge win, not only for them but for us audience goers and diehard fans of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So A24 has won the rights to that franchise. Next, I wanted to do something a little bit different than what we normally do. We're going to talk about trailers, specifically Super Bowl 60 trailers. That is such a huge milestone of the year when Super Bowl's around. You have all the commercials, but you also have movie trailers, and a lot of the big blockbuster films decide to release their first trailer or first official full-length trailer during that Super Bowl. So it sounds like Mandalorian and Grogu will get another trailer. Toy Story 5 will get a full-length trailer. At least it's rumored. The Odyssey from Christopher Nolan will get another trailer. Another Moana trailer. We've gotten that teaser already. It sounds like a full-length trailer will possibly be appearing in the Super Bowl. And then another trailer for Supergirl, the newest DC film from James Gunn, continuing his own DC universe within Warner Brothers. Now, the two biggest ones that everybody's been wondering is Avengers Doomsday and Spider-Man Brand New Day, the two featured films that will be coming from Marvel this year. Reportedly, there will be no Doomsday trailer at the Super Bowl, as well as Brand New Day. But Brand New Day is a little bit differently because Sony gets the okay on that one. So if Sony does decide that the Super Bowl is the perfect place to unveil the Spider-Man trailer, they will get the go-ahead for that. That movie is coming out in July, and we haven't seen any kind of teaser, any kind of clips. We've only seen a couple dozen photos from the set itself. Nothing as far as official shots from the film or even footage. So I think we're most likely going to get at least a Spider-Man trailer at Super Bowl because I feel like Sony is going to want to unveil that trailer, that movie, and what it's going to be. Now, maybe it's a case that a trailer just isn't ready, and that's why the reports are coming out that there won't be an Avengers or Spider-Man trailer at the Super Bowl, because they just aren't ready to have one out there. I mean, Avengers Doomsday sounds like it's still kind of filming as well, with reshoots and other things. So I wouldn't be as shocked if the Avengers trailer doesn't drop. They might wait until maybe the Mandalorian and Grogu movie comes out in May to release an Avengers trailer. I'd be very shocked if there is no sort of teaser for Spider-Man, because we're only a few months away from that one. And I feel like Sony is going to want that footage out there during the Super Bowl, when the most number of people in the world are going to be watching and tuning in for the Super Bowl. They're going to want eyes on that trailer. So we'll see what happens tomorrow at the Super Bowl, but I can't imagine Spider-Man not having some kind of footage, even if it's like a 20 to 30 second teaser. Like, there's got to be something brand new day related in the Super Bowl. Avengers Doomsday makes a lot of sense. They're probably not ready for any kind of trailers, and that doesn't come out till the very end of the year in December, so they have time to send out a couple of trailers. But Spider-Man, we're kind of getting there at the finish line, and they probably need to start marketing this movie to get butts in seats. So we'll see exactly what the itinerary is for as far as movie trailers go tomorrow. But it sounds like a lot of the films that have already released teasers are just going to get another full-length trailer or something like that. So very, very exciting. I look forward to all the movie trailers when it comes to Super Bowl time. I remember when Transformers had their first trailer back in the day when that one was coming out, as well as some of the other big blockbusters over the years. So lots of cool theories going around, but we'll see for sure what happens during Super Bowl 60. That pretty much wraps up for news and reactions today. Didn't really have anything on the docket, so I just kind of wanted to get a little fun today. So with that, let's take a quick break before we get into our featured series of the day, Wonder Man. This episode is brought to you by Dubby Energy. Still drinking energy that quits before you do? Stop crashing, stop shaking, and start performing. Meet Dubby Energy, clean energy made for gamers, creators, and anyone who refuses to slow down. With zero sugar, no jitters, and no crash, Dubby keeps you locked in whether you're grinding ranked, streaming for hours, or pushing through those late nights. There's no crash, no fade, just gas. Drink different, perform better. Grab Dubby Energy and use code Cinematic10 to get 10% off your order today.
The entertainment world is stunned today when internationally celebrated and reclusive filmmaker Von Kovac sprung out of retirement to sign on for a remake of Wonder Man. Mr. Von Kovac, could you tell us more?
Everyone is tired of superheroes. There is an opportunity to reimagine a whole genre of storytelling.
Have you thought about casting?
So, what's this big audition you were talking about?
It's a huge opportunity. I'm auditioning for Wonder Man.
Did you hear about Wonder Man? I need to be in this movie.
Sorry, you crazy.
I was born to play this character.
Oh, you serious? Boo, they are already talking to Leo.
You just gotta go out there and crush it.
What's wrong?
I'm trying to come up with a backstory for the character.
Well, trust the words. Just show up and say them.
That's not my process.
Well, your process can go blow a spider.
Guy's killing it in there, bro.
Where have I seen him before?
Pretty sure he used to be a terrorist.
You can slate whenever you're ready.
Simon Williams, reading for Wonder Man.
Listen to me, Simon. The callback is happening now. Just be normal.
Normal man. The breakdown is go method.
Come in. Mr. Kovac will meet you in the living room.
So you all here to meet Von Kovac?
Hello, everyone. I want to explore the place between fiction and non-fiction.
That's tight.
We are going to make the last movie on Earth. No one will have the balls to make another. And action!
Any news from Von Kovac?
There is news you'll be the first to know.
Unless you call me again, in which case I will never tell you.
So Wonder Man is a Marvel character I'm not really familiar with. It's a character I've never really heard of growing up as a Marvel fan. But so when they announced that they were going to introduce Wonder Man into the MCU and do an 8-episode series for the character, I had really no idea what to expect. Like I said, I hardly really was familiar with this character. But this was a very delightful show. I really liked all 8 episodes of the show, which is pretty rare, especially with the track record that Marvel has so far with their TV shows and some of their movies, but mainly aimed towards their Disney Plus content has been really lacking over the last few years. You know, WandaVision is probably still the best one, followed by like Hawkeye and Loki, of course. You can probably talk me into like Miss Marvel and Falcon and Winter Soldier, but then when you get into shows like She-Hulk, it's just bottom of the barrel type stuff. Daredevil Born Again really kind of picked things back up again when that came out last year, and now we're looking at season 2 already in the next month or so. So I think the TV series part of the MCU is kind of on the uptick now. I think starting off with Wonder Man, very delightful show. Like I said, it's about a character that I wasn't familiar with, so it didn't come with all that baggage, all that expectation from me as a viewer, which I really, really liked. You know, whereas when the Daredevil show came out, you know, I watched the Netflix series. I grew up watching the Ben Affleck movie. So there was a lot of expectations and a lot of baggage to come with it. Granted, Charlie Cox has nailed Daredevil, and he was the perfect casting for that, and the story was great. Everybody involved was perfect, so that definitely landed. Whereas She-Hulk, I was pretty familiar with the character growing up, you know, seeing her in the comics, video games, cartoons. I was pretty familiar with her, so I kind of had some little bit of expectations for that show, and it completely just went off the rails, was not what I wanted. It sounds like it's what a lot of fans didn't want from a Marvel series. It honestly could have been just a 2-hour movie like a bunch of these other shows could have been. Now, Wonder Man kind of benefits from it being a pretty short 8-episode show. I mean, each episode's probably anywhere from 30 to 35 minutes. So you're looking at about 4 hours, give or take a few minutes. So making this into a 2-hour film probably would have worked, but it would have been really condensed and really rushed. So I think it actually benefited from being a miniseries versus a 2-hour film. Whereas like Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, those type of shows, even Falcon and Winter Soldier to a point, probably could have just been a 2-hour movie, like we saw with Captain America Brave New World. The TV show that led up to that movie could have easily just been another 2-hour film. So I think Marvel has kind of heard its fans, heard the feedback, heard the reactions, and they're starting to scale back a little bit. You know, we only got a few shows coming out this year. We've got 2 movies coming out with Spider-Man and Avengers. The shows being Wonder Man and Daredevil coming out, you know, kind of back to back. But I think also in recent history, when Disney Plus drops all these episodes at once, it kind of tells you how the studio views that project. So the fact that this show wasn't week to week tells me that it was meant to be this binger of a show for somebody to just watch on a Saturday afternoon and just kind of have all the content together. Whereas Daredevil is going to be a week-to-week show, like with build-up and anticipation every week, which that show needs it. That show was built around that, and it sounds like this show, from what I can tell aesthetically with Wonder Man, it was made to be a one-sitting type project, which I really like. And I like that Disney, I have to imagine, realized that, and that's probably what they should have did with She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, and like I said, Falcon and Winter Soldier, where just give us all 8 episodes at once. You know, some of these, WandaVision was a great one where that actually benefited from week to week because of the way they wrote that story. And Hawkeye, for example, too, which I absolutely love, but that could have been just dropped altogether instead of the week to week. There was a couple of episodes there where it was nice to have a little bit of a cliffhanger and wait till the next week. But WandaVision and Loki, of course, they were made to do that. Whereas Wonder Man, She-Hulk, like I keep saying, should have been just dumps so that somebody can just sit there and watch it in one sitting. So, and it sounds like they are scaling back the budget on these shows too. I tried to find the budget for Wonder Man, but it sounds like from my research, it was a lot lower budget-wise from previous shows that they've done, like WandaVision, Loki. Of course, they had much more CGI, and no offense to Yahya Abdullah Mateen II, but you know, Elizabeth Olsen and Tom Hiddleston are higher caliber actors that require a larger payment when they do shows like that, whereas his contract was probably much lower in price range, so that helped him as well. I know Ben Kingsley, being a legendary actor that he probably had the biggest piece of the pie, being such an iconic figure in Hollywood, and just he's been doing this for decades. But this small cast and this small story, I think, is really what makes this so enjoyable and entertaining, because you just kind of get sucked into this small little corner of the MCU in a place we're all familiar with, Hollywood, with a character that is pretty relatable towards the end of the show. We'll talk about the characters here momentarily, but I had a little bit of an issue trying to relate to the Simon character or kind of have some kind of empathy for him because of his personality. But as the story goes on, as the 8 episodes go, you start to, you know, to quote Shrek, peel back those layers of the onion and realize that he has some definite trauma and some things that he is definitely dealing with that is affecting his way that he goes about life and how he interacts with people. So he's definitely a relatable person. You just have to peel back, you know, those layers and realize what he's dealing with on the inside. And that's where Ben Kingsley's character comes in and helps the audience and is kind of the audience and so to speak, as peeling back those layers of the onion that is Simon Williams. And they have a really good friendship and bond together because of that aesthetic, that part of the story, which was really, really well done. So the release date was January 27th. Like I said, all episodes dropped on Disney Plus on that day. So you just kind of was able to binge it for the next 4 hours and get familiar with the character. Kind of give you just a kind of a brief synopsis of the show if you haven't seen it yet, or you just kind of need a refresher. Small town actor Simon Williams struggles to reckon with his personal life while hiding his superpowers as he tries to land his dream world. Meanwhile, a shady government agent leverages a new friendship in order to save his own job, which means the Department of Damage Control kind of pressures Trevor Slattery, played by Ben Kingsley, into being this undercover friend of Simon in order to get him to reveal that he's a superhero or that he is enhanced so that they can arrest him, because it's actually pretty illegal to be an actor and be enhanced in Hollywood in this story, which is a really interesting topic to tackle. And I think the show does a really well job at introducing that topic and putting a character at the center where as you get to like episode 6 and 7 and 8, you're like, I hope he doesn't get caught, because we're starting to care about the Simon character, and you're just hoping that he doesn't get caught and that he can continue playing the role that he has always been dreaming of, and that is Wonder Man. And that kind of tiptoes into the next thing. This show is very meta. It is about Hollywood, of course, you know, you're getting all of the real world stuff in there. Like, I mean, Josh Gad's in here, as well as who was the other one? I'm totally drawing a blank on. It was Josh Gad and Joe Pantoliano, Joey Pants. So that was really cool to get those, and those were two interesting choices. You know, if you would have told me that two well-known actors were going to get thrown into the MCU as themselves, those two probably would have been the last two names I would have said. Now, Josh Gad makes sense because, you know, he's the voice of Olaf in Frozen, so he has that Disney connection. Joe Pantoliano, I don't remember what kind of ties he has to Disney, but I never would have guessed him to play himself in this show, or be connected with Disney Marvel in this way. Let me pull up his IMDb and maybe I can find that connection, because I'm just drawing a blank of when he has some sort of connection with Disney in the past. Bad Boys, of course. That's not a Disney one, I don't believe. The Chucky Show. Yeah, I don't see anything on here. Okay, so he was in Percy Jackson, and that is owned by Disney now, I believe. Fox. So, I mean, there's a slight connection there since he was in that Percy Jackson movie, which Fox originally owned, but then, of course, Disney bought out Fox. So I guess that could be the missing link there, but that's a huge... I digress either way. I just kind of got in my head there, but the meta part of this show, and I love it when they do this. I love it. I love shows and I love movies about Hollywood, about making movies, about making TV shows. I mean, he's even casted at the very beginning of this show in American Horror Story, which is a huge show in Hollywood today, or at least was. I don't think they make any episodes anymore. But the fact that he was cast in a major show in real life Hollywood is really awesome and very, very meta, of course. But that's kind of what Marvel is going to start doing now. They're going to start introducing real life characters. Like, we've gotten Kevin Bacon already, which was a fascinating thing to do in the Guardians of the Galaxy special. It was awesome to see Kevin Bacon. And now we have Josh Gad and Joey Pants coming in as well. So really, really great aesthetic to this show of it being in Hollywood and just making it a part of our everyday life is a lot centered around Hollywood and who's the next coming actor, who is kind of down in the dumps, who needs, you know, that big break to be shot into stardom. And that's where Simon comes in, where he is trying to find that one role that every actor dreams of that will catapult them into superstardom, into the stratosphere of the Hollywood icon circle. And to him, he believes Wonder Man is it. We get that cool little shot at the beginning of the show where he's watching Wonder Man with his dad in the theater, you know, after skipping school, and that bond between him and his dad over movies is what really made him want to become an actor and something that he's actually good at. He's a really good actor. He just needs to find that one break, and that is where Wonder Man comes in. He gets his one break and being casted as Wonder Man. So diving into the characters a little bit more here, we have Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, which he is the Wonder Man superhero, but he also plays Wonder Man in the movie. So that's kind of a really cool meta thing that they did here. Played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. You probably recognize him from the DC universe as Black Manta in the Aquaman part of DC, back when Snyder was still overseeing the DC before James Gunn took over. He's really great. Like I said, at the beginning of the show, at least for me, I wasn't really vibing with the Simon character. He was very stubborn, very douchey, very self-centered. You know, you see the show open with his girlfriend leaving him because he is so self-centered and not focused on her when you should be, you know, as boyfriend and girlfriend. But as we go through episodes, he has experiences with Trevor Slattery. They form this bond. Trevor ends up caring for him, even though he is supposed to be turning him in to the Department of Damage Control, starts peeling back the layers that is Simon and realizes his past and what he's been through and his motivations of becoming an actor and why he wants to do this. And you start to relate to him and you start caring about him. And then towards the end of the show, when he officially is cast as Wonder Man in the movie, you're like, yes, he earned it. He deserves this. This is his role. We are so excited. And that's really cool to see that journey through each of the 8 episodes as our thoughts and our feelings and reactions towards the Simon character change in a positive light, which is really, really cool. Trevor Slattery, like I mentioned before, played by Ben Kingsley once again. He, of course, was introduced to us in Iron Man 3 as the Mandarin, but not in the way that we were expecting. He is an actor hired to play the Mandarin for Guy Pearce, who was the real Mandarin in that movie. And then he ends up popping up in Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings, which makes sense because the creator of the show, Destin Daniel Cretton, directed Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. So that was really cool. I believe he signed a multi-project contract with Marvel. I'm hoping one of them is Shang-Chi 2 because I really love Shang-Chi. I'm excited to do that movie on the podcast finally in our Marvel Friday marathon this year. But he did a fantastic job with that movie and with this show. So kudos to Destin Daniel. But back to Slattery. So he pops up in there, and then now he returns in Wonder Man. But he's kind of dealing with the repercussions of being the Mandarin back in Iron Man 3, which is really cool that we're going all the way back to Iron Man 3, which is really good timing since we are doing this marathon for the show. So that's why I'm kind of doing this a little bit out of order here. Same thing with Daredevil. I think when we get to Daredevil Born Again season 2, I think we'll be around the Spider-Man Homecoming part of phase 3. So that'll be really cool to do Daredevil and Spider-Man back to back. We'll have to look at the calendar, but it'll be about the same way. So same thing here where we did Iron Man a little bit ago, Iron Man 3, and then now we're catching up with Trevor Slattery here, I'm starting to grow on. He was not a fan of the direction that they went with the Mandarin Iron Man 3 at the beginning. But like I said in the Iron Man 3 episode of the show, it's starting to grow on me. I like Ben Kingsley as an actor. He's terrific. I like the Trevor Slattery character. I just didn't quite like the idea of fusing him with the Mandarin, who is this really hardcore terrorist villain in the comics. But we get the Trevor Slattery character from that, so I'm not going to hold a grudge. I'm not going to be too mad about it because I do really, really like the Trevor Slattery character, especially after this show. I love the constant inner struggle that he has where he's trying to save his own skin from being arrested, but now he's met Simon and he actually cares about Simon. He has a friendship, a bond with him, and it's like betraying your best friend. So it's really heartbreaking, but it's really entertaining as well to see Ben Kingsley play Trevor once again in this show. He did a fantastic job. Some of the side characters here, we have Janelle, played by X Mayo. She is the talent agent of Simon Williams. She is a character that we don't necessarily need, but it works, if that makes sense. Like they wrote her character in a way that this show would be very different if she wasn't in here. Would it be a good show still? I think so. I'll be honest, I did find her kind of annoying, but I'm sure that's how the character was written, and that's how the direction that they wanted to go. It seems like she doesn't have Simon's back. I understand that Simon can be a bit over passionate, but as his agent, she needs to understand. I mean, she made the decision to sign him. She knew what kind of person she was dealing with when she signed him, so it's kind of her own fault, to be honest. So I wasn't really vibing with her character, but she played a role in here to where it's a completely different show if she's not in here. So this is another interesting thing that I found about this show. There's not really a villain in here. There's kind of an antagonist, and that would probably be Agent Cleary, played by Arian Moayed, who is the Agent Cleary from Spider-Man and some of the other shows that he's been popping up in. He's starting to be that link between all these projects now as the agent of Department of Damage Control. So if you're going to put a label on a villain in this show, it's going to be him. So we'll be covering him on the villain scale in the ranking segment today. But he did a good job. I like seeing him pop up because you do the Leo finger point when he pops up. And you're like, hey, he was in this project. He was in that project. So he's kind of taken over for Agent Coulson. But I don't want to think about it because I love Agent Coulson and nobody can ever replace Phil. But that's kind of what Marvel's doing now is they're using the Agent Cleary character from Damage Control as the Agent Coulson from S.H.I.E.L.D. to tie in all these projects. But as a dick, as an asshole instead of the lovable Phil Coulson, he is now the Agent Dick Asshole Cleary. You heard that here. Agent Dick Asshole Cleary is his name now. And then lastly, we have Vaughn Kovac, who is the director of the Wonder Man movie, played by, I'm going to butcher this name hard, Zlatko Buric. You probably recognize his crazy-ass hair from the Superman movie that just came out last year from James Gunn. He was the president of whatever that country was. What the hell was that country called in Superman? But he was the president. He was the corrupt president in there. Now he's the director of Wonder Man and Wonder Man. Let's see. He was Boravia. He was the president. He was the president of Bolivia. So a recognizable face, which was nice to see. It's the hair. He's got that Albert Einstein hair, but he did a pretty good job at the direct. I really like the episode where we go to his house, and we'll talk about this in the breakdown a little bit more. But I really like the episode where they go to his house and they're all doing these different acting situations to prove or to try out during the callbacks for the Wonder Man character. And he's really, really entertaining there. Like I mentioned, the creator / director of the show is Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed Shang-Chi. Did a fantastic job. I really liked what he did here for the show. He does have a multi-project contract. I hope he does Shang-Chi 2 because he did a fantastic job with that movie. And Shang-Chi deserves a sequel. Now, he will be in Doomsday. It sounds like he's going to be one of the main cores of this new Avengers lineup. So I think a sequel is pretty much warranted at this point. So since this is a comic book show, we have to talk about comic versus film, but we are going to rebrand it to comic versus series since this is a mini series. So in the Marvel Comics, Simon Williams grew up in New Jersey and is the son of a weapons manufacturer named Sanford Williams. In the comic book, Sanford Williams is not a very nice guy. He's kind of a douche from what I've read. He abused both Simon and his brother Eric, who Eric is in the show. They have kind of a troubled, broken brother relationship, but then they eventually mend it once Simon lands the Wonder Man role. So he abused them when they didn't get perfect grades in school. Eric ends up pursuing a life of crime. Luckily, in the MCU, Simon Williams has a much different upbringing. It's much more enjoyable. He is the son of 2 Haitian immigrants. He grew up in California, kind of in the San Fernando Valley of LA. His father, Sanford, of course, kept the name, ended up divorcing their mom when Simon was just a little kid. But then Sanford remained a positive force in Simon's life, as we see through the flashbacks, which is really cool. In fact, the car that Simon drives in the show is his father's car. Simon's brother Eric, fortunately, is a successful businessman in the MCU as well. While he and Simon have a tense brotherly relationship, like I mentioned already, they ultimately do love each other unconditionally. And also, like I mentioned, once he lands the role of Wonder Man, they kind of reconcile their differences because he is now proud of his brother. So very, very different upbringing from the comics. You can't really. That's a little bit too dark for what Disney is trying to tell in this MCU story. They've kind of shied away from a lot of the more darker, more adult themes from the comics. A big one is, I mentioned it on the Age of Ultron episode, but there is comic storylines where Wanda and Pietro, the twins, the Maximoff twins, kind of experiment in twincest. Of course, they left that out because that's not very family friendly. Just like the origins of Simon in the comics, with an abusive father who was a weapons manufacturer, is not a very easy thing to market to a family style franchise that is the MCU. So that was a really, really good idea to change that for sure. Originally in the comics, Simon Williams gets his powers from Baron Zemo, who we talked about on the Civil War episode, who fries him up with an with an ionic ray beam. However, on the Wonder Man series, the origins of Simon's powers are more unknown. We don't really know how he got them. We just know that he has them, and there was a house fire that was caused by his powers. We do know from conversations with Simon's families that he did survive, like I said, a house fire when he was a boy, and it's an unspoken secret that his powers were responsible for that house fire. On the Wonder Man show, Simon's powers seem to erupt during moments of intense emotion and stress, as we see in the kitchen scene at the birthday party, and in the apartment when he is frustrated with the Wonder Man audition. So again, very different origins to his powers, unless they do explain that Baron Zemo somehow was involved. But from what we can tell, Baron Zemo is not involved with the Wonder Man character as of right now. It could change. They could retcon that or add that in later. Marvel comic fans know Wonder Man is also an actor in the comics, but on the MCU show, Simon has no interest in joining the Avengers as of right now. In fact, he is so focused on being an actor that we never even seen him express a desire to join the Avengers. Shocker, because he's so self-absorbed in his Hollywood career. For the MCU, Simon Williams, acting is his true calling, not being a professional superhero as of right now. This differs from his comic book counterpart, who decided to leave the Avengers and pursue a career in Hollywood. So kind of the reverse. In the comics, Wonder Man has a romance with his fellow Avenger, Scarlet Witch. Interesting. The Marvel Comics version of Simon and Wanda have had a tense relationship, as after Vision was dismembered, Wanda wanted to use Simon's brain as the template for rebuilding her android partner, the latter of whom was cold and emotionless. That is screwed up. She was going to put Simon's brain in Vision so she can get Vision back. That is, like I said, there are themes that Marvel is not going to touch from the comics, and that of course is one of them. Where was I? Simon, understandably, wasn't comfortable with Wanda's request, but agreed to it after Wanda lost her children. However, Vision refused Simon's brain, noting that it would make him less than his former self and more like Simon. Obviously, because you have another dude's brain in your body, the brain is gonna take over, and all those personalities will be. There is no mention of Scarlet Witch in the MCU Wonder Man show, and considering that the MCU Simon Williams isn't an Avenger or has interacted with any other super people yet, this makes sense. We're not even sure if Scarlet Witch is going to come back to the MCU. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen has kind of hinted that she could be done with the MCU. I mean, the way they ended Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I think they were smart because they can go either way. They could say, oh, she died, or they could say that she disappeared. So TBD on her, but it's looking like she's not going to be returning anytime soon unless she pops up in Doomsday or Secret Wars. So this is where things get a bit meta. This is the last comic versus series note here. On the Wonder Man show, Simon Williams wins the lead role in the Wonder Man movie that Von Kovac is directing, and the movie goes on to be a smash hit. However, despite having superpowers himself and playing the Wonder Man character on screen, Simon Williams in the MCU isn't Wonder Man the way that Simon Williams is in Wonder Man in the Marvel Comics. The public in the MCU still doesn't know that Simon Williams has superpowers. In other words, the MCU Simon Williams just wants to be known as Simon Williams, Hollywood actor, whereas in the Marvel Comics, they know him as Wonder Man, the Avenger, because they reversed the timeline there. So those are the top, 5 differences that I found between the show and the comic. Again, they make sense because of the dark upbringing from Simon is just not sellable for a family-friendly franchise that is the MCU. And then, of course, throwing Simon in as a former Avenger just doesn't work with the story that they've been telling for the last almost 20 years now. So they had to reverse the timeline for him becoming an actor to Avenger. So it just, those changes make sense in my mind. I'm not a diehard Wonder Man. I'm not familiar with the Wonder Man. So I have no baggage, no expectation, no ties to it. So I'm totally fine with those changes. And they make total sense because they're introducing a character that's brand new, but the backstory is way different in the comics because that's just the timeline that was with the comics. So it's a little, their hands are kind of tied here with the MCU with introducing some of these characters, because in the comics, a lot of these characters were already members of the Avengers. Like, there's a vast number of members of the Avengers. So far, we've only had a few handfuls of them. So they're going to have to change origins for a lot of these characters in the MCU. Let's get to the episode breakdown, and then we'll finish off with the rankings. So 8 episodes. Episode 1, Matinee. So to kind of give you a synopsis of it, struggling actor Simon Williams is fired from a TV role that was American Horror Story and dumped by his girlfriend, deepening his self-doubt. After meeting Trevor Slattery, Simon secretly auditions for a remake of his childhood favorite Wonder Man and delivers an unexpectedly strong performance. Unknown to Simon, Slattery is secretly working with the Department of Damage Control to monitor him as a potentially dangerous, superpowered individual. And Wonder Man is a very dangerous superhero. Like, his powers are incredibly strong. I think when I was watching the show, I was kind of getting a little bit more familiar with what his powers are. He is like one of the strongest heroes in Marvel. Like, he could probably take down Captain Marvel, who I think is arguably the strongest character right now, and until the introduction of Wonder Man. So I think he's a huge target for Damage Control to go after, because they don't know which side he's on, what he's capable of. But it sounds like he is very, very dangerous and very strong. So it makes sense that Damage Control would be looking at him. I'm curious to know how they know about Simon. Now, it's been a couple weeks since I've seen the show, but I don't exactly remember how Damage Control found out about Simon's powers, because they obviously approached Slattery already knowing about Simon's gifts. So they must have had to really analyze the house fire to come to that conclusion. But as far as episode 1, it was a really good way of introducing this story, introducing the Simon character as this very self-centered actor that's just trying to get his career on track and then focus on everything outside, which is the case for Hollywood. Like, you have to put 120% into acting if you're going to be successful. You can't half-ass it. You can't do 2 things at once. Like, you have to put all your attention in on acting, and that's what Simon was trying to get his girlfriend to understand. But it's a tough business, it's a brutal business, and it's just really unfortunate that that's kind of where he's at. He's doubting himself, but he's a really good actor. Like, you can see it in the auditions that he does, the way that he carries himself through the auditions. He's a very, very good performer. And that's what ultimately gets him to land the Wonder Man role, because he's a good actor. And it's because he is putting all that effort in to his performance, to his skills, and it shows. But this is a really good episode. I like the beginning of it. Episode 2, Self-Tape. As Simon prepares a self-tape audition, his emotional instability causes his dormant powers to erupt in a destructive energy blast. Slattery helps him complete the audition while secretly hacking his computer to the Department of Damage Control. Their growing friendship is tested as Slattery discovers physical evidence of Simon's powers. This is where Ben Kingsley has seen it firsthand what his powers are. When he was recruited by the Department of Damage Control, they just said that he was enhanced. They didn't really dive into what he was capable of. Now he's starting to see it with his own eyes, and it's shocking. Like, he's very, very powerful. I can't wait to see his powers in full use. We get it at the very end of the show when he destroys the set and causes that big explosion. But I think that's just a small tip of the iceberg that we're about to see from him. But this episode, again, was great. We get to actually see his powers. We get to see Slattery and Simon grow their friendship together and doing the self-tape audition. It was really, really good. Episode 3, Pagamia. I believe is how you say it. That's the area in San Fernando Valley that he is from. Slattery accompanies Simon to his mother's birthday, where family tensions reveal Simon's lifelong loneliness and insecurity. An argument with his big brother triggers another uncontrolled display of power. Slattery destroys the wiretap recording, choosing loyalty over his Department of Damage Control orders, as both men receive callbacks for Wonder Man. This is a really good episode. I love that outburst in the kitchen, because we really get to see not just the power of his abilities, but the fear in his brother and his mother's eyes as they witness what Simon's capable of, and it's really, really well done. The party was funny, where Slattery is like kind of maneuvering around like a little snake, asking about Simon's childhood, about the house fire, trying to get the dirt on everybody, and then eventually he chooses Simon over to Damage Control by throwing away the wiretap recording, which I'm really glad that he did. And in all honesty, like, it's not his fault he was the Mandarin, because he was told that this was going to be an acting gig. He didn't think that he was going to be involved in a terrorist organization that's going to murder people. He really thought that this was just an acting gig. So I don't want to say he's completely innocent, but the way the Damage Control is coming after him as this big terrorist is kind of overblown, I think. And I hope it gets resolved at some point in the MCU, where he can finally put the Mandarin to bed and be Trevor Slattery again. Because you even get people throughout this show out in the public like, hey, didn't you play the Mandarin? And he's got to remind him that was an acting gig. I was acting. I'm Trevor, trying to separate reality and make believe. So, but I really like this. This is probably one of my favorite episodes for sure. Was this birthday party for his mom out in San Fernando Valley. So really, really well done. Episode 4. This is probably, so it started off weird, but towards the end of it, I really enjoyed this episode. Aside from the callback episode at Kovac's house, I think this is going to be my favorite. The episode flashes back to Damar Davis, a doorman who gains phasing powers after a toxic accident and becomes a Hollywood sensation. Fame and exploration lead to personal collapse when his powers called an actor to vanish during filming. His downfall results in strict industry bans on superpowered performance and lifelong government surveillance. So that is where Damage Control comes in and has to really monitor Hollywood. And I'm sure, like, I wonder if we're going to get a project that explores like athletes, like football, soccer, baseball. I wonder if we're going to get into that one now that we've touched Hollywood. But this episode is really cool, where Damar Davis ends up with these phasing powers. He becomes an actor. He works with Josh Gad on that movie, and they do this stunt where his character in the movie has his powers, and they're robbing this armored truck, and they're throwing the bags of money through his stomach and out the door, as if that's how they're getting away without even breaking open the armored truck. But then they come up with this idea, okay, let's really have the actor Josh Gad do this, where he goes into Damar's stomach and out the armored truck like the bags of money. But they didn't know that Damar Davis was super freaking hungover that day and throwing up. So, at the exact moment Josh Gad goes into his stomach, he throws up, throwing Josh Gad into some weird limbo state, and he doesn't come out the other end. Like, I out loud said, what the actual fuck, when that scene happened. When I saw Josh Gad go inside and not come out the other end, I was like, you fucking ate Josh Gad. And I hope we get some resolution on where the hell he ended up. Like, is he dead? Is he just floating out in like a black hole? Did he like implode? Or is he inside Damar Davis still? Like, there's so many questions with him disappearing, but that's how he vanishes. He vanishes inside the doorman. And before that, before he becomes a Hollywood actor and sensation, he's of course a doorman at a club, meets Josh Gad one night, discovers the powers, and becomes Josh Gad's like security guy to make him disappear easily, like going through doors, going through windows to get away from the paparazzi. But then he ends up becoming a actor / stuntman himself. And that's kind of where he gets tied into Hollywood. But this, when Josh Gad goes missing, that's what sparks this band on superpowered beings, because they don't want anybody else getting hurt or dead or any of that. So then that's where Damage Control comes in as well, and has to survey Hollywood and rid it of superpowered beings. Really wild episode. I really, really like it, though. Episode 5, found footage. Simon is forced to publicly use his powers to save Slattery from drug dealers, accidentally being filmed by a teenager. To erase the footage, Simon agrees to help recover a stolen motorcycle, leading to a violent confrontation involving police and criminals. The crisis ends just as Simon and Slattery learn their Wonder Man callbacks have been moved up, so they have to race to Kovac's house afterwards. This is a pretty crazy episode where they run into this teenager. He films Simon using his powers, so they have to kind of do whatever this kid says in order to get the footage back. But it turns out the kid's not very smart, and he's actually a criminal himself. And it ends in this big gunfight at this house with the cops and this criminal gang that ends up being there too, chasing after Slattery, these drug dealers. So it's a pretty crazy episode, but I really like it as well. Callback. This is probably my favorite episode. Exhausted and anxious, Simon struggles during improvisation auditions while Slattery excels. Encouraged to embrace his own emotions rather than hide behind technique, Simon finally delivers an honest performance. Both are cast while Slattery confirms Simon's powers to the Department of Damage Control and asks for more time to protect him. Really great. I love the different tests that the director puts him in for the auditions, the partnering, because he's trying to cast Wonder Man and his best friend. Drawing a blank on who his best friend is in the movie. Wonder Man best friend. What was his name? Barnaby. So Slattery ends up getting the role of Barnaby, and Simon gets it for Wonder Man, which is really good because they're best friends in real life now. So that chemistry, that bond, copies and pastes into the film, which is really good. I really like this callback episode. Episode 7, Kathy Friedman. As filming begins, Simon grows paranoid when a journalist investigates his past in close relationships. Slattery is publicly confronted about his government deal and admits to betraying Simon by spying on him. Overwhelmed, Simon loses control and destroys a Wonder Man set with a massive energy explosion. That's the explosion I was talking about, which was really cool. We get to see his potential. It's a big explosion on set. He destroys all the props and all that because he is so frustrated with Slattery betraying him. And it's really, really, really well performed by Mateen. Fantastic job. And then episode 8, the Yucca Valley. Slattery takes the blame for the explosion by reviving his Mandarin persona, allowing Simon to escape suspicion. Wonder Man becomes a success, and Simon gains new confidence and opportunities. Using access to Department of Damage Control prison, Simon ultimately breaks Slattery out, embracing both his powers and his loyalty. This is a really good episode, too. You get to see the end of Simon's, catapult into stardom. We start off with him being so self-centered, so hating on himself, down in the dumps, not really getting any success in Hollywood, to now it's really can't talk today. 8 episodes later, we get him getting his dream role. It's a huge success. He is now a huge actor figure in Hollywood. We are satisfied as an audience because we have gone through this journey of, like I keep saying, peeling back the layer of onions to who Simon really is inside, and we can relate to him. We care about him, and we're like, yes, you earn this. You earn this success, this role that you've been fighting your whole life for, and it's so satisfying as an audience member. Great way to cap off this little mini series, and I look forward to seeing Trevor Slattery more. I'm curious to see, where does the Simon character go from here? Does he make more movies? Do we get the ban of superpowers off the table so that superheroes can do their own stunts on set? Does he join the Avengers eventually? I gotta imagine that he will, because why introduce him anyway if you're not going to make him an Avenger eventually? So, but really, really, really awesome show. I really liked it. It's a very small and self-contained story, and I think that's what Marvel needed right now to kind of get back to their groove, get back to what they're good at, and it was a really good choice of making this such a small project and then just giving us all 8 episodes at once. We can watch it all in an afternoon, and it's really, really well done. I really liked it. So to wrap things up, like we always do, let's head over to the rankings for the MCU ranking, the MCU TV ranking, which we haven't done in a while, the villain scale, and then we'll wrap up with the popcorn rating. So first up, we've got the MCU ranking for Wonder Man. I've got it at 37. Now, it seems kind of low, but remember, there's 53 projects now. Going to be 54 when Daredevil comes out. So I think 37 is where I'm going to put it. I really liked it, but kind of where I put it at. So it's at 37. 38, I got Captain America Brave New World. 39, Thor. 40, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. So that's where we're 38, 39, probably more 39. That's where we start to get into not so great projects into the really bad stuff. Whereas we get to 36, Captain America First Avenger, Iron Man 2 at 35, 34 is Doctor Strange, which we'll get to next week. Iron Man 3 at 33, Black Widow at 32, Avengers Age of Ultron, which we've done already, at 31, and then Loki season 2 I've got at 30 to kind of give you a range of where it's sitting at. But I really liked Wonder Man. It's really good as a show, as a Marvel project, and I'm looking forward to what we do next with Wonder Man. The MCU TV ranking, which we haven't done in a while because I think the last show we had was Ironheart, I think, which we didn't dedicate an episode to, but we did talk about it. Yeah, I think it was Ironheart back 2025. So this is a little shorter of a list, so I'll just run through all of them here. Daredevil Born Again at number 1, Hawkeye at number 2, WandaVision at number 3, Loki season 1 at 4, Loki season 2 at 5. Now this is where I put Wonder Man at number 6. 7 is Ironheart. 8 is Miss Marvel. 9, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. 10, Agatha All Along. 11, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. 12, Moon Knight. 13, Echo. And 14, Secret Invasion, because it sucks. So yeah, Wonder Man at number 6. I really like it. It's one of the better shows that Marvel has done so far, and I look forward, like I said, to Simon's character. The villain scale. Again, as a reminder, this is a new segment that we came up with for this event, for Marvel event. We look at the performance by the actor, the costume, and the motivation of said villain. So the performance was pretty good from Arian Moed. Granted, he doesn't get a whole lot to do. He kind of pops in and out of the show. Most of his conversations are with Trevor, either in an interrogation room or on the phone. So not a whole lot for him to do. Costume, I mean, he looks like a federal agent. You know, he's got the Department of Damage Control outfits on. That's nothing too flashy. He looks like a government agent. And then the motivation as the villain. Like I said, there's not really a villain in this show, but if you're going to put a villain, it's going to be Agent Cleary, because he is coming after our hero. Now, at the end of the day, he's just doing his job as a government agent. We don't know too much of the Agent Cleary, at least what I can remember. Like I said, he's kind of been popping in and out of here. He's kind of the Phil Coulson to bridge all these projects together. Maybe he has a personal vendetta against superpowered beings. Maybe, like I said, he's just doing his job at the end of the day. But I'm giving him one Thanos head because he's not really a villain, but he is the antagonist of the movie, and not a whole lot for him to do. And it's not like he's blowing the performance out of the water. So one Thanos head for Agent Cleary. Last but not least, the popcorn rating for Wonder Man. I am giving it, this is tough, I'm going to give it 3 popcorn buckets. I thought about giving it 4, but I don't think I can quite get there because of the villain aspect of this, because I think there is more that we could have done with this show. Now, I loved it. It's a short, self-contained TV series, but what really is just can't quite get it up to 4 popcorn buckets is the Agent Cleary character. I feel like they didn't really have an antagonist, so they kind of just like, okay, who's a character that we've been using to link up these shows? It's Department of Damage Control, so they kind of just slot them in there. I think if we would have actually gotten like an actual villain, like maybe a rival actor or an actually super powered villain in here for him to go up against, I think I would have gotten it up to 4 popcorn buckets. But I think there's some missing here with the villain, with the some of these episodes, like the found footage one, the self-tape one, they're good, but I think they could have been much better. You know, the callback episode's great, love it. The Doorman one was great, even though they kind of just throw that at you. I don't think they necessarily needed an entire episode dedicated to it, but it's still a pretty decent one. The Kathy Freeman one probably could have been combined with the 8th episode, so we really only needed like 7 or 6 episodes. But I mean, it sounds like I'm really nitpicky here, but I wanted to give you an honest reaction, an honest review of this, and I can't go any higher than 3 popcorn buckets, even though I really like the show. But just looking at it as a whole, it's just not screaming 4 popcorn buckets to me. It's screaming 3. And 3 is good. You know, 3 is actually a pretty good rating on this scale that I made. So bravo to them. And a lot of these shows aren't even 3. Like looking at the ranking list here for the MCU TV, I think that's it. Like Wonder Man is 3, and everything below it is probably 2 or 1. And then you look at Loki, that's where we start to get 4. So that's kind of where I separated from. Like for the TV shows, Loki is season 2 is a 4. And then we have that break there at 3 at Wonder Man. And then you look at Ironheart, which is a decent show, but it's a huge drop off from Wonder Man. So that's where it starts to get into the 2 and the 1 popcorn buckets for me. So just kind of give you a little more explanation into the madness that is my brain when it comes to the popcorn rating. But 3 popcorn buckets for Wonder Man. Like the show a lot. It's really, really entertaining and really, really fun. Well, that's going to do it for today's Marvel Friday episode. Like I mentioned already, we're going to jump back into the theatrical timeline with Doctor Strange. Also next week, we will finish off the Gamerverse event with Free Guy starring Ryan Reynolds. Very excited to finally cover that movie on this podcast to wrap up our Gamerverse. And then the following week, we'll start a whole new event that I will announce on the Doctor Strange episode. So with that, check out all the other episodes from the Cinematic Reviews. Check out my football podcast, The End Zone Report, brought to you by Quantum Podcasts. We're gearing up for Super Bowl tomorrow, actually. Wow, we're already at the Super Bowl 60 here. And we'll have one last reaction episode before we get into a break until the NFL draft. This is when the show will return. So lots of content from Quantum Podcasts for you to check out on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts or watch podcasts at. With that, have a good weekend, everybody. We will see you all next time.